Hey guys, welcome back to our grow along. We are 7 weeks before our last frost date, and this week we're going to be starting a whole bunch of seeds for spring flowers. We're going to be chitting some potatoes, and if your area has workable soil, it's time to get those onions in the ground. If you're just joining us and you missed starting these flowers in the fall, you can still make it work if you have at least 8 weeks before your last frost date. All you're going to do is you're going to grab a Ziploc bag, put the name of the plant on it, a moist paper towel inside, and sprinkle the seeds inside. That way nothing gets lost. Then you just pop this in your fridge for about 2 weeks, no more than 4 weeks. At the 4-week mark, they start to go a little bit rotten and you're losing viability at that point. I put mine just in a Tupperware container, pop the whole thing in the fridge, and then 2 weeks later, this is where we're at and we're getting ready to sow these now. Now that we put our seeds in the fridge for 2 weeks and given them a mini winter, it's time to plant them. And we have two options. Either we can put them directly in these trays or we can pre-sprout them. I recommend with the bigger seeds, things like delphiniums, bells of Ireland, I'm pre-sprouting those so that I can see which ones are viable. With my really small seeds, things like poppies, those we're going to sow directly in the trays. To pre-sprout my bigger seeds, things like delphiniums and bells of Ireland, all I do is I'm going to take the plastic bag out, leave it sealed, and put it someplace warm, like a countertop or anything like that. It'll start to sprout. You'll get a long white tail, which is the root, and then you just go ahead and plant those in your trays. I've had them just out where they could be warmed up for about 2 days, and look at this. Look at this sprout. This is the root. So all we're going to do for this guy is we're going to create a hole. Now this is just our normal soil mix, just like we always do. I've pre-screened it, pre-moistened it, filled up the cells, and then I've made sure it was nice and light and fluffy. Then now that I have this hole, I don't want to damage this root, so I'm going to pop this right inside there and then slowly, carefully backfill. Now the seed is almost at the very top, but that's fine. It's going to do really well with that. And that's all I'm going to do for all of these that I've pre-sprouted. For really tiny seeds, things like, hold on, let me move these. We've talked about this before, that you plant the seed 2 to 3 times the depth of whatever the seed diameter is. Now that's just a rule of thumb. You're going to get specifics on the back of your packet. Now this is Black Swan poppies. Let's see if I can open it up without making a mess. These are Black Swan poppy seeds. They're incredibly small. I mean, just look how next to my finger, they're so small. Now these require light to germinate. So we're going to put them directly on the surface, but I'm going to prep it ahead of time. How I'm going to prep is I'm just going to make sure, I'm not trying to push it down hard. I'm just trying to make sure that there's no air pockets so that when this is watered, it won't collapse and bury the seed. We want the seed on the very top. Then what we're going to do, hold on, let me get this all done. I like to get the top wet so that the seed sticks. And then it's just like spices. We're going to take just a little bit and sprinkle. The higher you go, the more dispersed it is, the closer you are, the more control you have over where it goes. All right, can we do this without making a mess? I believe in me. Step 1, let's put the tag in. Okay. All right, I've got a few on my finger, and then I'm just going to try to get a couple in each cell. So I just have a little bit of, my finger just is wet from the paper towel, and that's helping me pick them up. And then I just roll them between my fingers, and you can kind of feel as they come off. And I'm not being super precise because it's almost impossible with these small seeds. We're just doing our best, and that's going to be good enough. Now, because they're on the surface, they're going to dry out super easily. So we're going to use our secret weapon in just a minute. We've got our tiny poppy seeds distributed as best as we could, and now it's time for our secret weapon. vermiculite. Now, vermiculite is a really lightweight, I want to say mineral. Can't remember. I'll look it up and put it on the screen. But what it is that it's translucent, so it will let air. It's translucent, so it will let light through without letting it dry out. It has a lot of surface area, so it has a lot of little crevices that it can fill up with water. So it helps regulate the soil moisture level without letting it dry out, but also not making it soggy and sodden. And I'm just trying to get a really thin layer of this on the top to help the top from drying out. Now, if you have snow in your area, you can just surface sow them literally straight on top of the snow. And when the snow melts, it'll provide that snow will give it that cold that it needs. And then when it melts, it'll get it the water that it needs, and you should have poppies right where you planted them. I am not ready to plant poppies in my garden. My garden's a mess. I got to get it cleaned. So we are preparing it here. All right. That one's done. Good to go. Now I am running out of space here in my shop or my garage. And most of these plants can handle a bit of cold. So what I will be doing once we get past this little winter vortex is I will be putting these trays outside in a little cold tunnel, a little low tunnel. They'll get a lot of sunshine there, and they'll do much better than if I tried to put them under grow lights, because no matter how good your grow lights, they're never as good as the sun. Because these need light to germinate, I would typically use my secret weapon of vermiculite. But I already did a whole tray with the vermiculite, so I'm going to run a little experiment. I know you can use potting soil too. We just want to have it really gently on top, just barely any. Just enough to keep the seeds from drying out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very gently, actually I think that's better. I'm trying to get an even, just very light coating on the top. We're going to see which tray. We're going to see if there's a significant difference in the germination rate. No idea. Let's find out. Done. Now we just put it under some lights. Remember, it needs light to germinate. I am out of space. I'm out of space, so I'm going to put it inside where there's a bright window. I keep forgetting to tell you, you need to put a fan on your seedlings once they've come up. It makes them so much stronger because they're having to resist the forces of that wind. It's going to really strengthen up those stems and prevent them from getting leggy, and it makes them much more able to adapt to the outside conditions when we're getting ready to transplant them. Chitting potatoes. So chitting potatoes just means you're going to get them pre-sprouted. You want to do this about 4 weeks before you're planning on putting them out in the garden. We plant them here in Texas, Central Texas. We plant them February 14th or Valentine's Day. That's the traditional time. And what you're looking for ideally is these really short little stubby growths. These little short sprouts are going to give you little tanks of a plant. These are going to be strong and robust and give you big fat tubers. Whereas you can see like this, small, squishy, not energy. There's not much energy left in this potato to be able to become established and give you a robust plant. Now this one might look impressive. It's just kind of fun, this long antenna, but it's not going to grow well because it's so long. It's going to be very hard not to break this off and damage it when you plant it. Plus, look at the tuber. It's no longer firm. It's pretty squishy. It doesn't have a lot of energy left to get established. So these, not great. Can you plant these? Yeah, honestly, I'll probably pop some of these in a bucket as an experiment and grow some in a container. But I'm not expecting to get a big harvest from these. The other reason we chit is, look, like this one has been in the same conditions, in warm, bright conditions, but no sprouts on this guy. He's wrinkly and squishy, but no sprouts. So we pre-sprout to make sure that they're gonna grow well, but it also gives us a head start on the season. And here in Texas, where our spring weather is such a short time before we hit that brutal heat, it's really important that we get that head start. Onions. If you haven't had a chance yet, it's time to get those onions in. Now I can't, it is freezing outside, the ground is rock hard, but if you have warmer soil where you're at, as long as it's workable, which just means not frozen, then you can go ahead and get the onion sets in. You're gonna plant them about an inch, inch and a half deep, not that deep, and you put them pretty far apart. I like big onions, like softball size. So I make sure I put them at least softball size apart. So if I want them to be this big, I'm going to plant them a little bit further. I take whatever size I want plus an inch, and that's how far I put them. And then I harvest them throughout the season. I'll harvest every other one as I'm going through and using them, and that gives them more space to continue to grow. All right, let's get into this week's garden chores. Winter is a great time to add mulch to your walkways. My neighbor had a tree taken down, and I was able to get an entire dump truck of wood chips for free. Winter is a great time to check your tools and do any repair or protection that you need to. This shovel has been left out in the weather and needs a quick sand and some oil to get it back and ready for spring.